Excuse me, the vice president has to catch a train in about an hour. So what we were going to do, he's agreed that he will speak while you're eating. So we're going to go ahead with the rest of the program right now. So if everybody would please, calm down so I can bring the vice president up here to speak. You know, this is a special honor for me. This is special that the vice president would agree to do this. In 1972, I had moved to Delaware, and I wanted to get involved in politics. And I lived up near, just below Claymont, and I found out that the committee man, back in those days, we actually had committee people who did things. A guy named Stan Kishork was an operating engineer with the Operating Engineers Labor Union. I went to him and asked him what could I do to get involved in politics. I was a Democrat, the first Democrat in my family, and I said, well, he said, look, there's this young guy on county council. We love him. He's running for Senate. He's not going to win, but you're going to meet a lot of people if you get involved in that campaign. So I decided to get involved, and I did lit drops, and I met my political mentor there, a guy named Ted Kaufman. And I've told the vice president, and I mean this sincerely, it turned out that next summer I was just, along with Mike McCabe, we were the first two interns in Senator Biden's office. And I told the vice president, and I mean this sincerely, I would not be here tonight if he had not given me the opportunities that I had back in 1972 and 73. By the way, he knew he was going to win that election. And the rest of us, we were too naive to believe that we couldn't win it. Anyway, it is my great, great honor to introduce our keynote speaker tonight, the 47th Vice President of the United States, Delawares, Joe Biden.
Please sit down. Please, thank you. You're making me feel like a governor. Thank you. Only kidding, John. Only kidding. Folks, please continue to eat. I served in the Senate for 36 years. I'm accustomed to not being taken seriously. So please, look, folks, I apologize. Jill is not here because we kid in the family that I'm an Irish Catholic and she's an English Presbyterian, and we Irish Catholics put off to tomorrow what we could do today, and the Presbyterians always do everything right on time and always doing her duty. And my Monsignor, she still teaches full time. She teaches 15 credits a semester, has never stopped, even when she was the second lady at Northern Virginia Community College, and she's still teaching there. And she wanted to come up to be here tonight, although I don't think she'd miss hearing one of my speeches. But not knowing the gravity of what was about to take place, and when she heard, as we were going to head to the train, that the University of Delaware is closed down and we're worried about what was the streets and roads in Baltimore and South, and knowing she had to be at school tomorrow at 8:30, she said she was staying home. So I wish she were here to see you all, and I wish she were here to take the credit I think she does deserve. When I met Jill, and I'm excused, as we used to say in the Senate, maybe we still do, point of personal privilege, I married to Jill because of Fred Sears, literally. Now, let me explain that very quickly. Fred and I were at University of Delaware together. We each got back our tax return. Mine was $89. I don't know what his was. And we got with a bunch of guys and got in a car, and we were going to drive down to Fort Lauderdale for spring break my junior year. And what happened was, we got down there, and for some reason, it was what you expected. It was crowded and everything. And Fred said to me, he said, you know, for $25 you can get a round trip on Caribe Air, it was called, to Nassau. Let's go to Nassau. And there was a guy that I nicknamed Crash McCran, a fullback on the football team. Back in those days, I don't want to date myself more than is already obvious, but he looked like and thought he was Rock Hudson, who was a heartthrob at the time. And so we got there, as Fred will tell you, in St. Thomas, in Paradise Island, and we in the Bahamas, and we realized all the public beaches were all the townies. None of the college girls were there. They were all at the private hotels. And you had to be a member of the hotel to get in the beach. There were chain link fences that went down right to the water. And so we were at the beach looking over at a hotel called the British Colonial Hotel. It was a pink hotel. It was beautiful, and all these beautiful girls on the beach, college co-eds, and we couldn't figure how to get in. And I think, Fred, I can take credit for the idea. People had taken their towels as they walked down to the beach and thrown them over the chain link fence to let them hang there. And they said British Colonial on them. So we hoisted 3 of the towels, wrapped them around us, and we walked in. It was a classic hotel in the islands, and you walk in, there's a reception desk, and then glass doors leading out to a pool and then out to the ocean. And so we just walked right through like we were guests, and we walked out, and there was a lovely brunette girl and a beautiful blonde girl there, and I turned and I said, I got the blonde. And Crash McCran said, no, I got it. And Fred said, let me settle this, I'll flip a coin. And they flipped the coin, I won the flip of the coin. At least he said I did. I don't know whether I really did. And I went up and introduced myself to this young woman, and I told her my name, and she told me her name, and I fell as, excuse me, Monsignor, as my uncle would say, ass over tin cups in love, and never went out with another woman again in my life until I lost her, and then found out that Jill, first time I took Jill out, Fred, she showed me a picture she had in her wallet, a picture of she and Nelia, my deceased wife, which was bizarre because I was campaigning at the university, and they were both bored with my speech, and they were sitting together, and they got to know one another. So it's all because of Fred Sears that anything good has ever happened to me. And in Washington, as Tommy can tell you, I'm known as Jill Biden's husband. Y'all think I'm kidding, I'm not. Tell you one more quick story. Jill's favorite day is Valentine's Day. And the first Valentine's Day, we were there in the White House. The Vice President's office in the West Wing faces the famous Eisenhower building, the Executive Office building. And there's 3 tiers of stairs, big wide stairs coming down on a street that's been closed. And when you walk down the stairs, you look right into the Vice President's office. And there's 4 16-foot by 4-foot wide windows with I don't know how many panes of glass in it. And I was meeting with the president. Jill went down and got the maintenance guy late on the night before Valentine's Day and got a ladder. And with that kind of paint you use when the kids use, in school, that wipes off easily, on every pane of glass she put a heart and it said, Joe loves Jill. And so the press was coming down, and Jay Carney, who became the president's press person, was my press guy. And they said, they want you to do tomorrow morning, they want you to do CBS Morning News with a reporter who was relatively well known then, Juju Chang. And so I went ahead and did it. I was getting mic'd up in the executive offices, and that morning for the 7 o'clock, the first round in CBS Morning News, and we were getting mic'd up, and they were putting up the big lights and everything, and we were sort of knee to knee, and she looks at me, she said, everybody says you and your wife have a great love affair going. And I said, I think so. And then I said, absolutely true story, my word is a Biden. I looked at her, I said, but I said, everybody knows I love Jill more than she loves me. And she looked me straight in the eye and said, "That's what everybody says." Swear to God. And then she said, "You know, I did a 3-part series I had never seen on what makes marriages last the longest and romantic." Not just the longest, but longest and romantic. You all know when somebody in their 60s or 70s walking along with their spouse, you can tell whether there's still some electricity there, just the way they walk and talk to one another. And she said Harvard and Stanford had done this 10-year study about what makes that happen. And they said, "You know what the conclusion was?" I said, "No." She said, "When the husband loves the wife more." So I'll be married the rest of my life, and romantically married, but not very well treated. But look, thank you on behalf of Jill. Thank you for recognizing. I'm very, very, very presumptuous of me, but I'm very proud of her. There's not a thing she has not been able to step up and do, from her focus on military families to all the work she's done on education. She's still deeply involved in the Biden Cancer Initiative. That's why I have to catch the train. I have 4 major cancer initiatives that I'm doing in California. One of the largest cancer and healthcare symposiums put on in the United States is sponsored by J.P. Morgan. I'm keynoting that tomorrow and on Thursday. And so, and she's deeply involved in that. And she's also still deeply involved in the causes that Bo, our son, championed, and particularly the matter of violence against abuse of children and violence against women. And I was told by the Bo Biden Foundation that the Chamber made a generous contribution to that effort. I thank you, thank you, thank you. You're going to save some children's lives. So thank you all very, very much. Look, I told Rich, I'm not surprised that everybody knows he has a horrible golf game, because I know when I went down to as vice president, my index had gotten down to 6.4 for you, those of you who are golfers. After 8 years, I'm golfing like a 20. So if you ever want to keep your handicap, ladies or gentlemen, do not run for president. He ran for president and fell apart. It's a killer. It doesn't help your handicap. And Rich, thank you for being my friend all these years, and it was my great good fortune to have you sent my way back in 1972. And as was pointed out by John, that he was at going into St. Mark's when I ran for the county council. I want to let the record show I was 25 years old when I was going to county council. So, but he's still 25 years younger than me. Anyway, Cheryl and Bobby and Mike, your efforts on behalf of the community, behalf of the business community, the workers in the state of Delaware, your commitment has been real and consequential. Things have changed, as has been pointed out. And the governor and previous governors have had to adjust to the change in the economic environment here in the state. And you've done a great job in working that change. I remember in 1974, I was asked to speak at the Cleveland City Club. And it's a well-known club that has speakers and of consequence. And the only reason I was invited is a guy named John Dean had to cancel for other reasons. And so I got invited to speak. And I was 32 years old, and show you how things have changed. The MC got up and said, "And now I'd like to introduce the senator from DuPont." I mean Delaware. Somebody said in the surprising video I saw when I found out I'm being honored tonight that, you know, people know Delaware where Joe Biden's from. Well, we've gone from a state that was overwhelmingly, and I think well served by one of the 8th largest corporation in the world when I got elected in 1972, to a corporation that's still going to make great contributions, but things have fundamentally changed. And because of the work of the people I just named and the commerce, we've adjusted. We've adjusted, and we're getting stronger. And to state the obvious, I'm extremely honored to be in Carol Carpenter's company and being honored with the Marvel Cup. I was honored to serve as vice president for these last 8 years, but as I said earlier, and used to unintentionally offend people in the White House, the greatest honor of my life was serving the state of Delaware as United States Senator. And I mean that sincerely. It's because, as I said, and I wasn't joking, for people to know you well, know your faults, know your foibles, know your shortcomings, and they know them all in this small state, and still vote for you is an enormous compliment. I remember back in when Pete DuPont was ending his term as governor, I was up for re-election, and it was assumed that there would be this race between Pete DuPont, who was an incredible governor and a really very, very popular guy, and me. And I remember we did a poll, and I later talked about it with Pete. He did a similar poll. And they asked the question, how many people in Delaware have personally met Joe Biden? This was in the 1980s. And 67% of the people of Delaware swore they personally met me. Have you met him 3 or more times? 39%, for real. Because like all of you, and like nobody more than Tommy, Senator Carper, you know, I held town meetings every year. I was all over the state and enjoyed it my entire career. So I thank all of you. I thank the people of Delaware. I thank you for putting up with my foibles, and as well as I have to tell you that the people of Delaware have rallied around the Biden family in the worst of times and the best of times. You carried me through when I lost my wife and daughter, before I was sworn in, and after I was elected. The state adopted my children. It was, I mean, the personal things that were done for me and my family, with my sister and my brother-in-law, Jack, who are here tonight, helping me raise my children, was amazing. I mean, the 1,000 little things that were done to make my boys more comfortable, to make me more comfortable, to welcome me. It was, I don't think it could have happened, and I mean this sincerely, anywhere else. And the good times, you were there to celebrate with me, and the way you all embraced my beau, Democrat, Republican, you all, it mattered. Those who've been through tough times, and a lot of people have been through in this room tougher times than I have, you know what it means to be the recipient of empathy and recipient of help. It matters. That touch matters. It matters. And you, many of you in this room, many of you I know very, very well, and even those I don't know well, just walking by and just laying your hand on my shoulder, just being there. It's amazing. It's amazing. You're an amazing, amazing group of people, and this is an amazing state. And I'd never be able to repay the state for all, and the people in the state, all they've done for me, so many people. Folks, it was here that I learned politics. I learned that it can and should be an honorable profession. I've been proud my whole life to be engaged in public service. I hope, like many others in this room, Mike Castle and others, who's one of my close friends, that we've demonstrated you can be honorable and put your state first before your own interest and be rewarded for it. It's not only the right thing to do, it's not even bad politics. But today, things have changed. Folks, think about it, that because of the good graces of the people of Delaware, I've served this state, this county, since 1970, the state since 1973. And I was extremely close and still am with Jane, but with Bill Roth. Bill Roth and I served together, and we were ideologically different on economic policy. But never once, think about this, I challenge anyone you to ever think of a single time there was ever a crossword. Ever. Not once in over 30 years. And there wasn't a single time when it wasn't a matter of principle. If Bill needed assistance, I wasn't there for him and he wasn't there for me. Not once. Not one single time. And Mike got engaged before I did. He was a state senator before I was a county councilman. But Mike and I have been friends for so long, and never one single time, not one time in over 46 years now, has there been a crossword between Mike and me. Not once. Not once. Two of the leading Republicans in the history of this state and leading Republicans in the nation, and not one single time, became my friends. We respect one another. Which leads me to a larger point, and that is when you get to know someone personally, no matter how much you may differ ideologically, it changes your whole perspective. When you know that your colleague is having a problem because he has a daughter that's sick, or a wife that has breast cancer, or a husband that is, it's just hard to let yourself be sucked into the personal attacks. It matters. President Obama always kidded me because there are certain mantras I'd continue for the entire time in the White House. He'd refer to me to his friends as I was like his older brother. Older brothers can say things to younger brothers in private and sometimes in public that you can't if you're the same age. And one of the things he always would kid me about is, as Joe says, all politics is personal. It's all personal, particularly foreign policy. It's all personal. And the fact of the matter is that that's the Delaware way. I was taught that way. Delaware is about getting everyone in a room, no matter how tough the problem, no matter how strong the disagreements, and staying in that room until we can work it out. I can't think of a major problem, Tommy, in all the times you and I have served, where we couldn't get the people in both parties in a room until we got a solution. Because they all put Delaware first. And there's no way to run a state or a nation without consensus. It's the nature of the beast. You need consensus under our system. That's the Delaware way. And when I was coming up, it was also the way nationally. It was also the way when I got to the Senate. It was the American way. I'd watch James O. Eason from Mississippi get up there and talk about what we had to do and all the problems are there, and getting a hell of a match with Teddy Kennedy over the Voting Rights Act and continuation of it. And they'd both go downstairs to the Senate dining room and they'd have lunch together. They still talk to one another. When I got to the Senate, the nation was more divided than it is today substantively. The war in Vietnam was ripping families apart. Not just the nation, but families. Friends, go back if you're old enough, the Vietnam generation. You had friends who didn't speak to you because of your view on one side or the other of that war. I remember when I ran in '72 and I was pushing the women's movement. It was because in the circles in some parts of the state, I must be gay if I am. What the hell does that have to do with anything? When I wrote the Violence Against Women Act, Biden was writing the Violence Against Women Act because he was setting up indoctrination centers for liberated women. Just go back and look at the papers from that era when the legislation was written. Any discussion of the Coastal Zone Act then, and you made adjustments necessary, of the Coastal Zone Act, it was about punishing corporate America. Folks, it was much more divided. But our political system was not broken. The political system was not broken. Today, on every single major issue, from same-sex marriage to infrastructure to foreign policy, there's a consensus of Americans between 54% and 68% who agree on every major issue. So why is it not working? The political system is broken. Gerrymandering and the Supreme Court decision of unlimited funding in campaigns. But more importantly than that, as all of you know, I've served in the Senate a long time. I make no apologies for my progressive record that sometimes bothers the business community. I make no apologies for it. It's who I am. But here's the deal, guys. I'm the guy who, on his deathbed, Strom Thurmond asked to do his eulogy. 100 years old, I got a phone call from the nurse's station from his wife. Said, "Now, Joe, I'm standing here with Strom's doctor. He asked me if you'd do a favor. Will you do his eulogy?" I did. Over 100,000 people in Columbia, in that big Baptist church, as well as lining the streets and loudspeakers. Jesse Helms was my nemesis for years. When he died, his wife, I went to the funeral, one of only 2 Democrats. His wife and his son that he adopted, who was seriously physically handicapped, and his 2 daughters came out, met 48 Republican senators and 2 Democratic senators. Chris Dodd and I walked up to me and said, "Joe, we put your Obama-Biden signs on our lawn. We voted for you." I didn't agree. I ran, when I ran the first time, against everything that Strom stood for and Jesse Helms stood for. But people change. People change. One of my closest friends, as you all know, has a volatile temper, not that I've ever had one. The second craniotomy, they clipped the temper cord. That's why they went in a second time. I remember a letter to the editor. The reason they went back in the second time for Biden's aneurysms was because they couldn't find a brain the first time. But one of my closest friends, who's dying right now, the same thing my beau died of, John McCain. I spend time with his family all the time. Last night with Megan for a long, long talk. John, I am now chairman of the Constitution Center in Philadelphia. We gave John our award from the Constitution Center. Of the 11 people who've gotten it in the last 11 years, 5 went on to win Nobel Prizes, a serious group of people. John made a speech that everyone should read. An underlying speech is what all of you know in your gut, Democrats and Republicans alike, and I find no distinction. I think Tom and Chris would tell you in the Congress, it's the same way. Democrats and Republicans agree on what I'm about to say, elected officials. And that is that politics in America is broken. It's gotten too petty. It's too partisan. It's too personal. It's ugly. And in order to realize the enormous potential of this country, we have to get back to some basic norms of political behavior. We have to return and be guided by the politics that was so long guided both political parties, not that we didn't have bitter, bitter fights.
The first was when my friend John McCain said we have to get rid of these two new isms that have popped up in America, not shared by the vast majority of Democrats or Republicans. One is what John McCain called half-baked, spurious nationalism that seeks to close our nation's gates against the challenges of a rapidly changing world and blame our troubles, whatever they are, on the other. It's always the other that is the reason why I don't have a job. The other is the reason why we have a problem. It's been the tool of charlatans throughout history. Find a scapegoat. We have to reject this dangerous theory of foreign policy that is closed off and clannish. One group, one that groups the world into us and them, rather than rebuilding on the shared narrative of freedom and democracy that has inspired nations to unite around common goals, allowed us, since World War II, to establish more serious political alliances around the world than in the history of all the world. Democrat and Republican presidents, Democrat and Republican Congresses, a liberal world order that has served our economy, our security, and our people extremely well. We have to reject the Hobbesian vision of the world in which for America to succeed, others must lose. That's the new model. That's never been who we have been, under Republicans or Democrats. We believe we succeed when other nations grow, when economies grow, when freedom is injected. It's never been a zero-sum game for the United States of America. It's never been, in order for us to succeed, the others must lose. Or as Hobbes put it, a war of all against all. That is a new burgeoning norm in the history of American foreign policy. We have to remember who we are as Americans. We must place our democratic principles back at the center of our foreign policy. America is led not only by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. That's why the rest of the world has repaired to us, and we've been able to lead it for over 70 years. The power of our example. The second dangerous notion is being promulgated by these same people is this phony populism. George Will, up at the National Constitution Center earlier, characterized it as, quote, giving majority rule priority over liberty, over rights, over due process when they conflict, as they frequently inevitably will, with majority impulses. We hold these truths self-evident, that all men and women are created equal. We mean it. We don't always live it, we mean it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're the only country in the world that not only has that verbiage, but set up an institutional structure that says even if a majority of Americans say that we're going to ignore one of the Bill of Rights, it can't be done. Well, look, I'll conclude by saying this. David Brooks wrote about a month ago in the Times, another conservative columnist. He said, the moral fabric of society is invisible but essential. Some use their public positions to dissolve it so they can have the open space for their selfishness. We cannot let this happen. It's imperative we understand the danger of the erosion of this invisible moral fabric And you know what that is. It's basic fundamental concepts of decency, honesty, dignity, respect, giving hate no harbor, leaving no one behind, understanding as Americans we're part of something much bigger. America has been an idea. That's what both parties have always embraced. We cannot use our public positions the way they're being used by some in both parties. We have to use those positions to reweave the values that are American values back in the fabric of our political system. We need to start to talk to one another again. We don't do that. Quick story. I went up, every time there'd be trouble in the administration, I'd be the guy sent up the hill to settle it. I decided to go to the Senate dining room, Tommy. I told Tommy this, to have lunch where the two big tables where the parties could sit down and have lunch with Democrats and Republicans. There's no table anymore. It's gone. They're just lounge chairs. There's not a single place you can go in the United States Senate and sit down with your Republican colleagues and have a candid conversation. None. Zero. We need to listen more. My dad used to say, I don't expect the government to solve my problems, but I do expect them, Joey, to understand my problem. Once again, we need to listen to the middle class, men and women. So many, even with jobs, feel alienated. You know, as Yeats said in a poem he wrote about Easter rising, he said, all's changed utterly. A terrible beauty has been born. The economy of the world is changing. And for a lot of middle-class people who have been able to live the middle-class dream, they are in danger. They are scared to death they're going to lose their ability to make it. I was with a friend I grew up with in Claymont who drives truck. He joked with me, he said, Joey, I'm retired because only you guys in politics can keep working. And he said, but my son Johnny, he's still driving. They make $80,000 to $100,000 a year breaking their neck. He said, but Joey, he knows he's going to have no job in 6 years. It's all going to be automated. No more truck drivers. Progress moves on. We're not offering answers to these people. They have legitimate concerns. There are answers, which I'll not take the time to go into. But we're not listening, and my party's not listening either. These are not reprehensible people. They're legitimate people, black, white, Hispanic, who are worried about their future. We have to rebuild the muscle memory that has allowed us the narrative at consensus in our national political system. We have to stand up for the American story. As Brooks said, he went on and said, human beings cannot be rallied about, can be rallied around only one of three things: religion, tribe, or ideals. Think of what we're being rallied around now, around tribes. Who are you? Not ideals. This is a country built on ideals. That's who we are. That's why we've been able to integrate so significantly. The most heterogeneous nation in the world. But now it's around tribe. Folks, country's been through much worse. And I'll close by saying this to you. In spite of all the problems out there, I don't think there's any systemic problem in the nation. It's the broken political system. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been doing this a long time. I've always been referred to as the White House optimist, middle-class Joe, which in Washington is not meant as a compliment. It means you're not sophisticated. But I know why we're who we are, because of a vibrant middle class. I've spent more time with the Chinese leader, Xi Jinping, than any leader in the world. I've had over 25 hours of private dinners with him, just he and I and an interpreter. We were in Chengdu, a town of 22 million people on the Tibetan Plateau. And he turned to me and he said, this is now almost 2 years ago. He said, can you define America for me? And I said, yes, I can, in one word, and I mean it: possibilities. Possibilities. Unlike any other nation in the world. Not hyperbole. Unlike any other nation in the world. We believe in possibilities. Anything's possible in America. Where has that gone? Where has that gone? Folks, we're better positioned than any nation in the world to own the 21st century. We are energy independent for the remainder of this century. We have the most productive workforce in the world, objectively, 3 times as productive as workers in Asia, factually. We have more great research universities than all the rest of the world combined because of a guy named Dwight D. Eisenhower after Sputnik. Every major innovation has come out of those universities. I was just with the chairman of the board of Google, who's working with me on some other matters, and he pointed out at a conference we both did that the only reason there's a Google is because of Stanford University and the research done there and paying for tuitions there. And folks, we are the most agile venture capitalist in the world. There's nothing beyond our capacity. I mean it. This is not hyperbole. There's nothing beyond our capacity. When in America have we ever said, well, I'm not sure we can do that? When has that ever occurred in American history? But that's what we're stuck with now. Well, we have so much, we're put upon so much. Folks, it's time to stand up. Reestablish what the Greeks referred to as paideia, decent citizenship, participation. Take it back. Take back and reestablish this moral fabric. This is the outfit that can do it. One of my favorite poets was Seamus Heaney. He just passed away. He wrote a poem called The Cure at Troy. There's a paragraph in it that says, history teaches us not to hope on this side of the grave, but then once in a lifetime, that longed-for tidal wave of justice rises up, and hope and history rhyme. I believe with every fiber in my being, we are better positioned to make hope and history rhyme than any generation in American history. So damn it, get up and do it. Thank you very much. Do it the Delaware way.
Joe, thank you so much. It has been my honor to chair this dinner. And when we decided to do this way back in August, we said, what can we really do for the Vice President that he will appreciate? This is about the future, not the past. And the dinner committee, the Board of Governors, and the Board of Directors have thrown a little bit of money in the pot. Here's $35,000 for the Bow Foundation.
Whoa. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's for you.
Well, I promise they'll put it to good use. It's a first-class operation. A lot of children's lives, God willing, will change. Thank you so very much. I love you all. Thank you for listening. Oh, yeah, come on. In the light more. In the light more. Get ready, Sean. All right, come on. Ready, I got to catch the train. Come on, dude. He's slow, but he's good.
He's slow, but he's good.
All right. We want to try and get out of here in 10 minutes, so let's be quick. Next, the Board Member of the Year. I have the great honor of announcing the A.R. Morris Board Member of the Year. The special recognition is voted on by the Chamber staff. It is named in honor of Al Morris, who opened the A.R. Morris Jewelers in 1960. Mr. Morris and his son Brett are to be with us tonight. They did not make it. I'd like to thank them for sponsoring the award. The recipient of the A.R. Morris Board Member of the Year is Chip Rossi, our outgoing chairman. Our friends from Sussex County have once again donated our door prize for tonight, a weekend of fun and relaxation at the beach. The winner will enjoy a weekend spa package that includes 2-night stay and 2 Swedish massages at the Belmore Inn and Spa. I want to thank the Moore family for that donation. A $100 Sodell gift card. Alan Levin, thank you. A round of golf for Kings Creek Country Club, and a benevolence box, whatever that is, and a $50 gift card from Dogfish Head. Earlier, the name was drawn from all those registered to dinner. It's very sophisticated. I pick out a number, and the person who was that number registrant wins the award. Please announce the winner is Andrew Catone from Edias. Andrew, congratulations. You can get it on your way out. I've been privileged to work with Chip Rossi as our chairman for the past 2 years. Thank you, Chip, for your solid leadership and guidance on behalf of the chamber and its members. We appreciate the time and dedication you put forth in furthering our mission. You have set a very high bar for the staff. They appreciate it. In most cases, I think they've met it, and you have made us a much stronger organization. Chip, would you please come up and introduce Gary, our next chairman?
All right, before I introduce Gary, just a couple thoughts. In listening to Vice President Biden, just think about possibilities. And collectively, this group and people that are departing, just think about a few things. Budget, education, healthcare, career readiness for young people in our state, and bringing and taking advantage of the possibilities associated with the Coastal Zone Act that the governor referenced and the public-private partnership. Those are the things collectively that we've got to have the courage to work together to really achieve the possibilities that exist in all of those things. So what's great is that we've got a terrific leader, a very capable business leader who's going to be taking over as the board chair for 2018 and 19. And it gives me a great pleasure to introduce our new board chair, and that is Gary Stockbridge. So, Gary, congratulations. Come on up. Okay. Where did he go? There you go.
Sure. So just a couple quick comments. First, my compliments to Chip. He has made this, coming into this role, extremely easy in the leadership that he has provided. So Chip, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for making it easy to come in. I think my best compliment I can pay you is that hopefully people don't notice the difference in our leadership styles, because I know you and I are very much alike in that regard. Second, for those of you that know me, I'm very much about collaboration. And so a lot of the comments you heard tonight about working together for the good of Delaware is what I'm all about. I look forward to that. And also, I'm not going to stand between you all and the game, so I'm going to pass it back to Rich. Thank you.
Look forward to working with Gary. Let's finish this up for those of you who have stuck around. It's been a busy year at the chamber. The staff has done a tremendous job, and I will recognize them in a minute. I have one more thing I need to do before we leave tonight. People ask me what my greatest achievement is. My greatest achievement is sitting down here. She won't stand up. She told me don't ask her to. My wife, Colleen. And our greatest achievement is sitting at table 48. My daughter, Robin, who was an intern for Joe Biden when she was at Boston College. My son-in-law, Mike, grandson, Jack, granddaughter, Allie, who are at that table. She is a proud Archmere graduate. Also is my daughter, Ashley, who is a proud St. Mark's graduate. My son, Richard, with his wife, Jenna, who is with baby Jude, who should be arriving in probably about 6-7 weeks. He'll be here. So we're looking forward to that. Lastly, the staff. I wouldn't be here. We would not have accomplished the things we've accomplished without the staff. This weekend, Cheryl Kaur and Kelly Wetzel, Danae Crumry, and Eileen Leach from from Bank of America, from Chip's office, spent spent this weekend, Saturday, and they left last night about 7:30 in the office putting this all together, final touches. Thank you, guys. You did a great job. And thank you to, as we call him, the voice of God, Chuck James. Are you here? You don't see him, but you hear him at these dinners. James DeShane, head of government affairs. Biff Hastings, who was our controller. Mark DeMayo, Linda Erickson, Freddie Miller, Bill Osborne, and Ken Evans. The staff just do a tremendous job. Like, once again, I wouldn't be here. We wouldn't be successful as we are without them. Also, the two interns, former intern Candy Dunn and Claire Armand, who also helped out putting the dinner together and help out at the chamber. Thank you, guys. We wouldn't be where we are. We wouldn't accomplish what we've accomplished. I thank you, guys. I love you guys. I know I'm looking forward to retirement, but it's going to be a sad day when I leave you all behind and all my other people who worked with me. And there's one other here who retired earlier this year, Marianne Antonini, who was there almost as long as me, not quite. It was my controller. She retired earlier this year. Anyway, Monsignor, would you please come up and give the benediction?
Praise the Lord. We thank you, Lord, for the gifts of fellowship that we have shared this evening. We thank all those who made this dinner possible. We thank those who are leaving office as a responsibility of the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce and those who are accepting the challenge of becoming officers for the new year. We thank you particularly for the opportunity to honor our Joe, both with the Marble Cup and also with the opportunity to give him the stage to offer us words of wisdom and challenge from his long years in public office. We ask you to bless his family and their needs, and we ask him to bless him in the work that he is doing, particularly in so many areas that will be helpful to so many people. And may the Lord bless us and keep us. May the Lord make his face to shine upon us and give us all his peace. Safe home. Amen.
Thank you, Monsignor. That concludes the 181st dinner of the Delaware State Chamber of Commerce. Please pick up your annual dinner glasses on the way back, on the way out. Happy New Year, and be careful on your way home. Those taking the bus, pick up your coats and meet Mark DeMayo at the front entrance. Once again, please be safe going home. Thank you.